There's a feeling you get right before your heart breaks. It doesn't arrive all at once. It starts as something small. A strange silence, a nervous glance, a feeling in your stomach that whispers, something isn't right. That afternoon, I was sitting on the couch, getting ready to sleep before work. My boyfriend was outside, on the porch, and within a few seconds, everything I thought I knew about our relationship started to fall apart. The worst part? This wasn't the first time. That trust had been broken, and deep down, I was terrified that history was repeating itself. But what I discovered later that night was even more painful than I expected. My name is Emily. I'm 26 years old. My boyfriend was 25. At that point, we'd been together for almost 2 years. From the outside, we probably looked normal. We laughed together, watched movies together, and talked about the future together. But relationships aren't measured by photos or happy moments. They're measured by trust, and ours already had cracks in it. A year earlier, I had caught him cheating. Not because he confessed. Not because he felt guilty. Because I found out myself. I remember the pain of that discovery. The shaking hands. The racing heartbeat. The feeling that the person lying beside me was suddenly a stranger. Somehow, we stayed together. He promised it would never happen again. He cried. He apologized. And he swore, I will change. And for a while, I believed him. I wanted to believe him. Because when you love someone, sometimes hope is stronger than logic. But that afternoon on the porch, that old fear came back. And it hit me harder than ever. I worked third shift. He worked first shift. Our schedules were completely opposite. By late afternoon, I was usually exhausted and getting ready to sleep before heading to work later that night. That day seemed completely normal. We were sitting together on the porch. The weather was warm. Birds were chirping, and his phone was playing random YouTube videos while we relaxed. For a little while, everything felt peaceful. Eventually, I stood up. I'm gonna go lay down before work, I told him. He smiled. Okay, babe. I love you. I love you too. I'll come sit with you in a minute. Nothing unusual. Nothing suspicious. At least, that's what I thought. I walked inside and dropped onto the couch. From where the couch sat, I could see straight through the glass door to the porch. I glanced outside one last time, and that's when I noticed something. He was looking over his shoulder at me, not casually, not naturally, almost like he was checking whether I was watching him. A strange feeling settled in my stomach, and I couldn't explain it. Maybe I was imagining things. Maybe the past was making me paranoid. So I turned around, closed my eyes, and tried to relax. But something felt wrong. A few seconds later, I looked back, and what I saw immediately made my heart sink. The second he thought I wasn't looking, he opened Facebook Messenger. A message popped up. He started reading, then typing, fast, focused, like he had been waiting for it. My stomach tightened. I sat up, and my heart started beating faster. Who was he talking to? Why wait until I walked away? Why look over his shoulder first? I tried to tell myself there was a reasonable explanation. But then, I got up and quietly walked toward the door. The moment I opened it, I saw him quickly switch screens. Messenger disappeared. Facebook appeared. So fast that it almost looked rehearsed. Like he'd done it before. Like he knew exactly what he was hiding. I forced a smile, walked over, and wrapped my arms around him. "Hey." "Hey," he said. His voice sounded normal. Too normal. But his phone was already locked. The conversation was gone. And suddenly, I felt like I was standing beside someone. I couldn't read anymore. After the hug, I went back inside. I couldn't stop thinking. Every second felt heavier. Questions kept running through my head. Who was messaging him? Why hide it? Why switch screens so quickly? Why did it feel exactly like the last time? A few minutes later, he came inside. "Are you okay?" "Yeah," I lied. Because I wasn't okay, not even close. He stayed quiet, then laid down beside me. Actually, he laid almost on top of me, like he wanted physical closeness, like he wanted reassurance, or maybe like he wanted to stop me from asking questions. The room was silent. Neither of us spoke. I eventually fell asleep, but even in my sleep, that feeling never left. Hours later, I woke up. The television was on. He was watching some random show. As soon as he noticed I was awake, he looked over. "Are you okay?" Again, the same question. For some reason, hearing it twice made me even more suspicious. I stared at him for a moment. Then, I finally asked, "Who were you talking to earlier?" He didn't hesitate. "My brother." My heart dropped, because I already knew. That answer didn't feel right. I had seen part of the profile picture, just for a split second, and it definitely didn't look like either of his brothers. But I simply nodded. Okay. I didn't argue. I didn't accuse him. I didn't want to fight. Not yet. Because if there was one thing I'd learned before, it was that people reveal more when they think you believe them. Later that night, while he was distracted, I opened my laptop. The same laptop I used for school. Years ago, he had logged into Facebook on it. And somehow, the account was still connected. My hands were shaking. Part of me didn't want to look, and part of me already knew I would. I opened Messenger and started searching. His brothers. Nothing. No recent conversations. No messages from that day. No evidence of what he'd told me. Then I noticed something strange. An encryption recovery message. A missing section of conversation history. Something wasn't adding up. I stared at the screen, my pulse pounding in my ears. Was I paranoid? Was I overthinking? Or was I looking at proof that messages had been hidden? Deleted? Removed? I didn't know. But I knew one thing. I no longer trusted what I was being told. And trust, once broken, changes everything. The next evening, I couldn't hold it in anymore. The anxiety was eating me alive. I asked him to sit down. His expression immediately changed, like he already knew what this conversation was about. We need to talk. About what? I looked straight at him. About yesterday. Silence. Who were you really talking to? His jaw tightened. My brother. Stop. Another silence. Longer this time. Painful. I could feel tears forming. Please, don't lie to me again. His eyes dropped to the floor. And suddenly, I knew. Before he even spoke, I knew. Because guilty people have a look. A look that says the truth is standing right behind them, waiting. Eventually, he sighed. A long, exhausted sigh. And then, he admitted it. Not everything, not immediately. Just enough. There was another woman. Someone he'd been talking to. Someone he knew I wouldn't be comfortable with. Someone he deliberately hid from me. The room felt like it was spinning. I remember staring at the wall, trying to process what I was hearing. The details almost didn't matter anymore. The betrayal was enough. Because the real wound wasn't the messages. It wasn't the lying. It wasn't even the possibility of cheating. It was the realization that the person I loved had looked me in the eyes and chosen deception again. I started crying. Not loudly, just quietly. The kind of crying that comes from exhaustion. The kind that comes when you've spent too long fighting for something already broken. He apologized. Again. He said he was sorry. Again. He said he loved me. Again. But this time, the words felt different. Because apologies can't rebuild trust by themselves. Promises can't erase patterns. And love, without honesty, eventually becomes pain. That night, I barely slept. I kept replaying every moment, every excuse, every promise, every chance I had given him. And for the first time, I stopped asking whether I could trust him. I started asking whether I could trust myself enough to walk away. Looking back now, the biggest lesson wasn't about cheating. It wasn't about Facebook messages, or hidden conversations, or deleted chats. It was about listening to myself. Sometimes your heart notices the truth before your mind accepts it. Sometimes that uncomfortable feeling exists for a reason. And sometimes the hardest thing you'll ever do is believe what you're already seeing. Love requires trust, and trust requires honesty. Without those things, a relationship becomes a place where you constantly question yourself. And no one deserves to live that way. If someone repeatedly breaks your trust, you have to ask yourself a difficult question. Are you holding on to who they are, or who you keep hoping they'll become? Because real love isn't hiding phones. It isn't deleting messages. It isn't making someone feel crazy for asking questions. Real love makes you feel safe. And the moment you lose that safety, you owe it to yourself to pay attention. Because protecting your peace isn't giving up. Sometimes it's finally choosing yourself.